Hello, I'm Tom Bailey, and in today's Speaker Stories episode, I'll be getting to know Dr. Joe Martin, who's an award winning international speaker, author, educator, and certified builder of men. So, Joe, hello, and a very warm welcome to today's episode.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tom. It's my pleasure.
I really appreciate you being here. And just for all of our listeners' benefits, whereabouts in the world are you right now?
I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which to kind of give them a reference point, is about maybe an hour and a half north of Atlanta, Georgia, in the
Excellent.
States.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And I also know from reading your bio before this that you've authored or co-authored 9 books. And amazingly, have spoken for or spoken on behalf of more than 750 businesses or organizations, which is huge. So my first question today is, what is it for you about public speaking that keeps you coming back time and time again?
Well, as far as I never, I wanted to do public speaking, but I didn't know that it was going to turn into a lifelong career of doing it. But what brings it back is the potential impact and relationships you can build as a result of speaking. The way I describe public speaking is basically it's like you're getting paid actually to advertise and promote what you do,
Yeah.
because even though you're delivering a message, um, the real work comes when you build relationships with people in the audience, certain people in that audience. So some of the clients that I've spoken for, I've spoken for them like 15, 20 years straight, where they
Wow.
keep bringing you back year after year after year after year. So it's really not about that one time. It's about the relationship you build with them, that they'll keep bringing you back for more.
Yeah, so a lot of the speakers I speak to say that you want to become a referable speaker in that
Right.
you want your talk to be that good and move the audience that much that people want you to keep coming back time and time again. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Um, so thinking back to the very beginning, then I'm just really interested to find out: were you a natural born public speaker? Were you shy at school? What were the early days like for you?
Yeah, I actually I consider myself an introvert.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not that I don't like being around people, but I get my energy from being by myself
Yeah.
and being in solitude, and I'm more cerebral.
Hmm.
But as far as what public speaking, what got me to come out of my shell wasn't the fact that I wanted to do public speaking. It was the fact that I had a story to tell,
Yeah.
because I grew up in very rough conditions in abject poverty, like a lot of kids in the inner city, and survived a lot of trauma. But because of overcoming that past and then succeeding, you're talking about, I was the first person in my family to ever graduate from high school,
Wow.
and no one in my family had gone to college. And not only was I the first to graduate from high school, I became the youngest professor ever hired to teach in the state of Florida at the age of 24.
Amazing.
And so going from a person, a mom who never even graduated high school, no one in our family graduated high school, to making history in the state of Florida by becoming a professor, a university professor. See, it wasn't that I wanted to do public speaking. The obvious question is, how did that happen?
Mm.
And had my PhD by the time I was 28 years old.
Hmm.
And so they want to know, how did this kid come from the projects? And I'll give you an example. My mom has 11 siblings,
Wow.
6 brothers, 5 sisters. Not one male made it past the age of 40. I'm the oldest living male on my mom's side of the family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had a compelling story to tell about how I overcame abject poverty, abuse, gang violence, drugs, addiction, with with education. And so it was more so the desire to tell people how I did it, how I
Hmm.
overcame it. And it just took off after that. It kind of took on a life of its own.
Yeah, it almost became your duty to tell that story then
Yeah,
at that
yeah, an obligation. It felt
obligation.
more like an obligation to do it more so than I wanted to pursue it as a career. And I remember when I first got into it, I was telling this guy who was a public speaker that I wanted to do, and he heard my story. And he told me I was going to do really well. And I said,
Mm.
"How do you?" I said, "I've never spoken before. What do you mean? How do you know I'm going to do well?" He says, "Because how you just told me your story." He said, "You never once mentioned you wanted to do this as a career."
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said, "Well, I don't." He says,
Mm.
"I know that's what you're saying." He says, "But if you tell your story the way you just told your story to me," he says, "you're not going to be able to prevent yourself from having a career doing this, because more people are going to want to hear your story."
Yeah.
And he was absolutely right, because it just grew, and grew. And before I knew it, I was quitting my jobs to do this full
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So,
and I guess by building the foundations on storytelling, that's one of the best skills of public speaking anyway. So that's fantastic. Just want to resonate or reflect back on the fact that you said introvert, because that's something that I really resonate with, and I know that a lot of the listeners will. So there's this almost belief that you have to be extroverted to be able to be on stage. That's not true, is it? And I guess how do you rebuild your battery? How do you rebuild your energies after doing a big talk, which takes a lot of energy from you?
well, well, I usually take a nap.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what I do. But uh, what revives me after I speak is more so of the connections that I made from the
Yes.
audience. I
Yeah.
reflect on it and I look at the impact that I made, and I just kind of, okay, what could I have done better? Where did I think I really connected? Because normally, if you do public speaking long enough, you kind of do, even though you have a planned program, a presentation, you kind of still doing it extemporaneously because things will come to you while you're
Mhm.
speaking. It just flows. And then you go back and you say, okay, I got to remember that. I got to remember that next time I speak.
Mhm.
But more so, I just kind of get by myself and reflect. I'm joking about it, but I do take a nap. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to go to
yeah,
sleep because
yeah.
normally you're getting it back on a plane. And I mean, before
Mhm.
the plane takes off, I'm asleep.
Exhausted,
And
yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so it drains my energy. I never get drained being by myself. I only get drained when I'm in front of an
Yeah.
audience.
So I guess for any introvert listening, just know that you can do it. It might not be in your comfort zone as such, but there's ways to recover, and absolutely worth that energy expansion. So next question is, so I was trying to kind of go back again to the beginning. So you'd obviously figured out that you can tell your story, you had a great story, but you weren't a skilled public speaker at this point. So what what do you now know that you'd wish you'd known back then in terms of some of the lessons you've learned about how to become a better public speaker?
Well, as far as when I taught at the university level, I actually taught public speaking.
Right.
I taught public relations. I taught communication, journalism. So I
Mhm.
was in the communication field, and so I know how to craft a message.
Yeah.
I know how to grab people's attention. I know how to keep their attention. I know how to do voice inflection, to speed it up, to slow it down. I know how to do the dramatic pauses and all the other stuff. And anybody can be taught how to be a good public speaker. That's not that difficult. Learning the skill of public speaking. They said, well, then what makes a speaker gifted?
Yeah.
To me, what makes a speaker gifted is how they can respond on the fly without being prepared.
Hmm.
In other words, I think I'm a pretty decent public speaker, but I'm even more effective when we're doing Q&A. And
Yeah.
I don't know what's coming, like this kind of
Yeah.
format right here. I
Yeah.
don't know what you didn't send me questions
No,
before we came here,
I didn't.
but I'm really good at knowing how to craft a message and put it together if you ask me a question. And to me, those are the gifted type of speakers who can do that, and they don't need prompting, they don't need preparation, they just kind of go with it. And
Hmm.
they say, wow, I can't believe that person was able to do that. But as far as knowing what I know now and going back, it wouldn't be more about the skill of public speaking that I would give myself advice on. It would be more so about the business side of
Yes.
public speaking,
Yeah.
of knowing how to make it a career.
Hmm.
I was just doing it just because I wanted to share my story, but I didn't know that I could make a living doing this for the rest of my life, and I would have been more intentional about planning that out. And so I tell people, I say there's two pieces of advice I would give myself if I had to go back and see my old self over 20 now. Guess how long it's been? Almost going on 30 years this year.
Yeah.
If I could go back, I would tell myself, one, um, create product quicker.
Yeah. Yeah.
create
Of
some
course.
create a product, write a book or something
Yeah.
quick. Do that. And two, be intentional about building your platform.
Hmm.
I didn't even know what a platform was. And now with the internet, social media, I realized how important, and people now in with the internet know how important the platform is.
Mm.
And so you talking about seeing over a million members of my audience or target audience, and not being intentional about building a platform around that.
Got
I
it.
would
Yeah.
have been more intentional about doing that. The skill, you can learn that,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
business side of it, that takes training. You have to be trained on how to market from the stage, how to see the audience, how to um, put in the how get them to ask you for the product that you're offering, as opposed to quote selling your
Yes.
product. And so all that stuff takes skill to learn,
But
the marketing side of it.
Perfect. So just a couple of questions to kind of build on that. And the first question is around that product. You mentioned it could be a book. What other things do you think that speakers should be built? I guess it depends on the industry, but are we talking online courses? Are we talking coaching programs? What kinds of products are we talking about?
Well, you can do any kind. When you're starting out, you just need to have something to sell.
Something to
Anything,
sell. Yeah.
a book. As long as you have something that you can, in addition to your fee, you can have
Hmm.
something to sell.
Yeah.
But I think the key product that eventually you want to build too, if you don't start out with the product, is a coaching program.
Mm.
It's something that will allow the listener, the person in the audience, to have a long-term relationship with you. So that means you must have so much value that they want to stick around. That's why speakers like me are able to do what we do full time. It's not well, we get paid a lot of money from speaking, but that could be up and down. When
Mm.
COVID hit,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's dried up everything.
It did.
And so, what does a speaker do if you were used to getting 75 to 150 speaking gigs a year, and now you can't get on a plane and you can't go anywhere? Then you're broke.
Mm.
And so that's why you need to have product. And so the best product to have, I think, long term is to have some type of coaching program or a community program where people are buying into to be part of that community.
Yeah.
And that's what most the most successful speakers, that's what they do. That's what I do.
And that makes complete sense because speakers, you're really in the transformation game. You're helping an audience transform from where they are to where they want to get to, and there's only so much they can transform in a 60-minute
In a
presentation.
60-minute presentation,
They,
exactly.
they want that next logical step to keep building that
Right.
relationship. Yeah, great. So that makes complete sense. And then the second part then was platform. So let's think of a brand new speaker, aspiring speaker. They haven't really got a platform. They haven't really got a following as such. What do they do? Where do they start building this platform?
You start building your platform by getting email addresses.
Okay. Yep.
The key is building your
Mm.
list of people who say, man, I love what you have. And the way you start building your list is by giving them something after you leave. Say, hey, I want to give you some, I have a gift for you. I want to give you something, which some people call them freemiums,
Mhm.
freebies, or whatever, that you can give them in exchange for their email address. Now,
Right.
we know an email address, even if you have a list of 100,000 people, you're probably going to get about a 20 to 25% open rate anyway. So it's not
Mm.
like all of them are going to respond to you, but the numbers, you got to play the numbers. The bigger you can make that list, the more consistency you can expect to have when it comes to selling product or
Yeah.
opening up, selling a course or opening up a program, a membership program or coaching program. And so you start with the list. And I know when I started out that, I didn't know that in the beginning, but after I caught on to it, I said, wait a
Mhm.
minute, I need to be capturing these names and email addresses.
Yeah.
So never speak at a place, especially if it's your target audience, never speak at a place where you're not trying to get the names and email addresses. You want to get as many as you can. If you can, everybody's email address, but at least, I mean, my target is to get at least half the audience's
Yeah.
email addresses. But I got to give them something of value in order to get that from them.
Cool. And I've seen some really cool, you can have QR codes on the screen, they'll scan with their mobile. You can have
Right.
a number to text, and they'll get something sent back. So yeah, lots of different ways you can do that as well. So that's great. And final thing I want to talk about in the topic of the business side of speaking is this transition point between speaking for free, which a lot of people have to do to begin with, to asking for your first paid speaking gig. What does that transition point feel like, and how can people best navigate it?
Well, typically, what's going to happen, even if you speak for free, if you're getting referrals and you're good at what you do, they're going to ask you before you even ask for a fee.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because somebody's told them about you. That at least that's how it happened for me.
Mhm.
I knew that eventually they told me I was gonna have to charge, but I didn't have, I thought no one would ever pay me to do this.
Mm.
I'm having too much fun.
Yeah.
Right. I said, nobody's ever going to pay me to do this. So I was reluctant and scared to ask
Mm.
someone to pay me because I thought I was like stealing money or something.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So I just continued to speak for free. But after like maybe the second or third or fourth one after I got referred, they say, okay, yeah, we heard about you from Tom Bailey, and we want you to speak to our group. Well, how much do you charge? See, they invited
Yeah.
me now to come up with a
Yeah.
price
Yeah.
because I didn't say I charge. I'm just,
Mhm.
okay, tell me about your speaking engagement. When is it? Am I
Yeah.
available? Then say, okay, so what's your rate? How
Yeah.
much do you charge? And so from there, it kind of they pulled me in.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you how much a novice I was. The first time someone asked me that, I didn't know what to charge because I
Nope.
never thought anybody would pay me.
Mhm.
And so I'm dating myself now, but this is over talking about 30 years ago. I thought about Tony Robbins. And I say, well, Tony Robbins back then he was charging like $2,000 a head
Yeah.
to come hear him
Yeah.
at his whatever retreat he had in Hawaii somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm not Tony Robbins. I can't charge $2,000 a head. Now, also for those who are listening, don't do what I'm doing right now.
No.
This is what I did, but don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So this, Joe, how much do you charge? I said, well, I can't charge $2,000 a head. I said, I charge by the head. I said, I charge $2 per person. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, well, they said, okay. I said, how many people you expect? They said, 900. So, okay, that's $1,800. So my first paid speaking engagement, I made $1,800.
Not bad.
That's actually stupid, but
Yeah.
I did well for that first gig,
Yeah.
but that's actually a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe I was getting paid $1,800.
Yeah.
And when they wrote that check for $1,800, I'm thinking, okay, I don't need to charge by the head. I need to charge an amount because they're willing to pay this.
Yeah.
And so here's the next tip I would give you. When you're coming up with your price for what you should charge, only charge what you're confident in saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Tom, you said, Joe, how much is your speaking fee? $500.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be charging you $500. I probably need to charge you $200.
Yeah.
But if you said, Joe, what's your speaking fee? 50 grand.
Yeah.
See what conviction I said that? Now it may shock you and give you a heart attack, but I didn't stutter.
No.
$50,000.
Feels credible.
And you got to be able to say it with conviction. If you can't say it with conviction and your voice flutters, you don't need to be charging that.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so I guess practice, figure out your price point, and practice saying it with conviction.
Yeah, and also know your audience too, the target market, because I primarily worked in the education field, so I'm not gonna be able to charge $50,000 for a speaking gig, but I can get away with charging up to about 10.
Yeah,
for the education arena. But if I'm working corporate, I've done some corporate gigs where I can charge double that.
Yeah.
So you got to know the limitations of the market as well, but never charge anything you're not confident in saying verbally.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So I think one last point I want to just to dive into, I guess, is you mentioned choosing your audience, but what about choosing your niche? Obviously, you kind of your story, I guess, became the foundations of your niche. Did you stick in that arena, or have you branched out into different topics now? And what advice would you give to somebody else?
Well, I started to, I do think you need to pick your niche first before who you're gonna target, because even though you can speak to everybody, not everybody's gonna want to hire you, and they don't want a jack of all trades. They want a master of an audience. There's better speakers than me out there, but for my target market, I'll still get the gig before they will because of my experience in knowing that particular market. I started out targeting students, college students. And then I went to targeting teachers and administrators. And so those are my primary markets. So I know those. And what you start with when you're choosing your niche is, I always say, if you know your story and you know the results you can produce, there's so many different audiences you can target. If you were on your deathbed and you had to help one particular segment of the population, who would you start with?
Yes.
And so with me, based on my story and where I grew up, the first thing I want to do was help kids because I was young and I didn't know all this stuff. And then as I matured, man, I need to help the teachers who help the kids.
Got it. Yeah.
So I went with, I didn't go for the money. I went for where's my heart? Who would I want to help the most? Because I can speak. I've spoken to the CIA, the United States Navy, but I never targeted any of those people. They just came by referrals.
Yeah.
But when you hear 750, it's actually more than 750 now. It's probably over 1,500.
Wow.
Gigs that I've done. But I would say 90% of them are in the education arena.
Yeah.
10% of those were places I'm thinking, I can't believe the CIA is asking me to speak to them. What do I need to speak to the CIA for? I don't know anything about the CIA.
Yeah.
So it kind of naturally grows from that. But I go with, who do I want to help the most? Who can I make the biggest impact with? And I start with it. Now I work with men now. So that's my audience now. I work primarily with men of faith.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. It's not the niche for life, is it? You need to start somewhere. And then just see where it goes. So I guess
it'll grow organically. As you get into a niche, what will happen is, as you start helping that niche, you start realizing, okay, what can I do to help that niche even more? And you may find out it's another target audience. Like with educators, if I'm helping educators, guess what I'm doing? I'm helping kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and also it pays a lot better too, working with
Yeah,
the
of
educators.
course. Love that. Fantastic. And well, great. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. You've added so much value to me and to the audience as well. So the last question from me today is somebody wants to book you as a speaker or find out more about you. Where's the best place for them to go?
Well, we have an organization called Real Men Connect. That's Real Men Connect. And they go to realmenconnect.com. They'll see the link that says speak. They say we want to bring Joe in to speak. And
Fantastic.
matter of fact, they'll see a picture of me on a stage
Yeah,
speaking to
speaking.
a group of men. And
Yeah,
so if they go to realmenconnect.com, that's real men, MEN, connect, CONNECT.com.
fantastic. What I'll do is I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, so people can click that and they can find out more. So, Joe, thank you so much again for your time today, sharing your amazing story with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. My pleasure.